Hey, everybody, welcome. We're back again with Roy to talk about some really, hopefully, amazing, fun stuff that will blow your mind. I started to talk with him just a little bit this morning about it and already had like a million questions. So we will see how this call goes today. And welcome, welcome, Roy.
Good
I'm
morning. Thank you.
excited.
Thank
I'm
you. I'm excited to
excited.
be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here and be able to talk about this topic because I've had a lot of questions about this topic, and you said you could talk for hours about this topic. So you
I
probably have done a lot of research about this topic.
well, this topic has been on my mind for the last few years because it's such a massive, massive topic.
Yeah. Okay, so let's introduce the topic, which is I don't even know how to introduce it other than I've heard it termed as the crystalline body, right? Like if we're going to a 5D world and that means we're going to have a crystalline body. That's what I've heard. I don't
Right.
know what's true. I don't know much about it. I just have heard that this is a good thing. So,
Yeah.
where would you start a beginner on this topic?
Well, I would say I don't know for sure whether we turn crystalline either, but I've observed in nature lots and lots of things that have that path going from carbon to crystalline. And so
Mhm.
we're part of nature. And so when I heard that we go from carbon to crystalline, it made sense. And so I started researching it more to find out if that's truly possible. And if so, what the heck is that going to feel like? You
Yeah.
know? And so is it an overnight thing? Is it a millennial thing? Can you do it in 100 years? What? And so the esoteric part of it, as I was learning, there's not much out there about it because I don't think many people know really what happens, because as soon as somebody goes from carbon to crystalline, I don't think that they hang out in this carbon realm anymore. That's
Mm.
just my opinion. And so it's kind of in my observation, it's a journey of alchemy for each individual person, of trying to change themselves from a lower form of matter, which is carbon, to a higher form of matter, which is crystal. And the
Okay.
reason that I say it's a lower form is because carbon typically has six protons, six neutrons, and six electrons. Well, diamond has far more than that. And so basically, you take carbon as the base, and as you add electrons and protons and neutrons to that, it turns into an allotrope of carbon, essentially, which is another style of carbon, but it could be graphene or diamond or whatever. There's a bunch of allotropes that carbon can actually change into
Okay. So
atomically.
so it's very natural for carbon to change into something.
Correct.
This is a very natural process for carbon.
Correct.
And so give all of us like what is carbon?
Well, carbon
And
basically
what
is
isn't carbon, right? Like is everything that is earth on the earth, is that carbon based? Like what is carbon and what isn't?
That's a great question, and I don't know the exact technical answer for it,
Okay.
but I know that carbon is plentiful everywhere, right?
Okay.
And it's in the air we breathe. It's in all the particles of matter is
Yeah.
carbon.
Okay.
Um,
Cool. But we
so
do know that our bodies are made of carbon.
yes, pretty much I would say everything on the planet is made of carbon, but I don't
Okay.
know that for sure.
Got
And
it.
that's, I don't want to be too technically lying there, but
Okay. And so then
okay,
the natural course of carbon is to
correct,
change its form.
correct.
Okay. I love this.
And so in nature, when we burn a tree, for instance, that tree is a form of, it releases energy, but it's carbon. And so when the fire actually oxidizes all of the organic matter out of the tree, the only thing that you have left is the carbon shell or the carbon structure, which, because it's the original framework that is the stability for the tree, right? Then basically the carbon is a huge superstructure that can hold a tremendous amount of organic matter.
Mm.
That is the tree. So a
Okay.
whole bunch of organic matter. Uh, yeah. So that's the tree. And so when you burn that, or when the tree dies or degrades and that organic matter disintegrates or oxidizes if you're burning it, then that structure that's left is carbon, or what we call it in the industry is called biochar. And I can show a picture of that real quick to show you what kind of what it does. if you'd like.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay, so let me. So this here is a picture of it's an electron microscope where it's been blown up big, but it's, you can see all the little holes in it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the structure that is the tree. And so all the organic matter can actually, the microbes or whatever it is, can actually live in these structures and
Mm,
build upon this structure, and that makes the tree.
okay.
So this is one form of carbon
Okay.
after it's been purified, so to speak, right? It's been purified from organic matter. I want to show you
Changed,
what, go ahead.
changed form.
It's changed form, correct.
Okay.
It's went from a full organic living to a structure that can once again start to provide life for other beings. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
And so we're basically recycling that tree from a tree to something that we can use it for. But I want
Oh,
to show you here. So this is actually what a diamond looks like, which is an allotrope of carbon, which
okay.
is another type of carbon. We
Right.
can make like an example of that. So, but see the superstructure on that? See the
Yes.
difference on how this one is more coherent
Yeah.
than this one here. So the difference is coherence. The more
Okay.
coherence that you have, and the more information that you can store, the more life you can store, the more of a superstructure you become. And so if you get as far as diamond, then you have changed from carbon structure to a super lattice structure that can hold
Mm,
millions and millions times more amount of information.
wow. Okay. So the more coherent it is, the more that structure can hold the information.
Correct.
Great. So can we talk a little bit about, and I don't know if this wants to come next, but this is the question that popped in my brain is, what does it mean to be crystalline? Like, what does that term even mean?
Well, in my opinion, if we look at science, what the term means for crystalline, if going from simply like with the biochar picture I showed you, if we're
Mhm.
going to turn a tree from carbon to crystal, basically what I have to do is I have to heat treat it to purify it. I have to cool it off and kind of teach it. Basically, not teach it, but because it already has the structure. But when I'm burning this tree, I have to burn it a certain way, and then I have to put the fire out before everything is consumed. Otherwise, the fire would continue to burn the structure.
Right.
Trying to burn it in a way that's one, loving, two, that isn't all consuming, and three, I have a plan for this biochar. And so the biochar, because it's an organic, it has life. If I put all, it's a little esoteric, but if I put all these things in my field as I'm working with the biochar, then the biochar, because it's an energetic electrical signal, the biochar has a field and I have a field. We've taught
Right.
about this in chemistry. Everybody has fields. But as my intention to do certain things for this biochar, it, as the biochar is burning and purifying, it is actually in a state of transformation. And so
Mm,
during that state of transformation is when I can put programming into this biochar of my intention, my love, my actual ingredients that I want it to be able to be symbiotic with. I can
mm,
actually put it in it while I'm transforming the biochar.
nice. And so this is like a frequency. The biochar is now open to receiving a frequency, and this helps to
Yes,
program the biochar with certain frequency,
correct.
as
Correct.
well as its own, structure.
Yes, it's basically using its own structure, and my intention and will is influencing its structure, how it solidifies and recrystals to be able to hold the information that I am programming it with.
Hmm.
And so to get back to your other question on where we go crystalline, what I believe is we are doing that to ourselves in a much slower process. We
Hmm.
are purifying our vessels. We are using the influence from the spiritual beings, the higher realms, hopefully with the intentions that they understand. We have to be able to flow enough to be able to put their intentions into our structure and grow that way so that we will actually resonate with the things that the higher realms are teaching us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
It makes sense to me. It may not make sense to other people. I don't know, because I play with those realms myself. But the thought that I had was is it could even just be your, maybe using some terminology people understand, like your higher self or your soul that's helping you to guide you to program it and or to receive certain things so that you can upgrade in the way that you're wanting to upgrade.
yes,
Correct?
I can give you an example of down to earth that might help people understand a little bit.
That would be fabulous.
When I make biochar, or when I'm going to make the biochar, right, you burn it. And to program the biochar is I have would have made a solution of microbes that I want to live in this biochar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this solution of microbes, and while the biochar is hot, I'm going to pour the solution of microbes on the biochar, and it's going to kill the first few of them. I shouldn't say kill, but basically the first few are going to sacrifice their energy in their bodies to go into this hot biochar because their energy is actually getting imprinted into the semiconductor
Oh,
of the biochar. So the first row, let's say the front row, are basically going into the biochar to set an example of what I
wow.
want. And then now their energy has been fused into the biochar. So now the rest of this solution that I pour in there, they resonate with the frequency of the biochar. It's like home, because the first ones that did it actually came in, they set the example, they laid the groundwork,
The
they set up the
pioneers.
electrical charges for the Crystal Palace.
Yeah. Wow, the pioneers.
Exactly.
And so it might be more intense for them, but they are doing it to
Right.
open the path, the way for all of the others to be able to do it easier.
That's right. That's
Dang,
right.
I resonate.
And if you look at this is a little bit religious, but what did Jesus do for us?
Yeah. Yeah. And all the other great masters, what
Yeah,
did
I
they do?
mean,
They
right.
came
I mean,
into the planet at a time when it was intense and they literally got killed for it.
that's right. That's right. But their energy stayed here, and it actually allows us to resonate with their energy. And so I see that in nature. And when I saw the connection in nature, it was like, oh my gosh, this is as above, so below in its finest.
That's beautiful, beautiful. Wow. So I'm already starting to see the work that I've done towards, not that I have this goal of becoming a crystalline structure because I don't even know what that is, right? I mean, it's a great thought for
Right.
me, but I've had this intention for many, many years now to be the best I can possibly be in this lifetime, right? To learn and to expand my consciousness and to grow and to resonate with the highest form that I possibly can while in this physical form, right? And
Right.
I've been doing that for a long time. So
Do you
when
think that
you
that's
start
purifying?
talking,
Oh,
huh?
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When you started talking about programming it, right? And sacrificing and the fire, right? For what you're doing with the tree. I'm like, dang, these are all like things I have felt over these last handful of years of like, yeah, there's a certain level of feeling burned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being stripped, being pulled apart at the seams in some ways when you start like really diving into doing like story work, limiting mindset stuff, right? You start doing that, there's a part of you that gets to die, and there's a part of you that it's not comfortable,
Right.
right?
Right.
And yet that is what is required in order for us to expand our levels of consciousness and to grow as a human being from this 3D reality into something that's a little bit more coherent
Right.
with
Exactly.
with spirit, right? Because if we're just the physical dense body, I would see that as sort of like, I don't know, the tree or whatever, carbon based, right? And then as we progress, then that's the way I'm seeing it. So
Well,
talk to me
I
about
think you're exactly right. The carbon atomic structure is the basis for the 666 that we've all heard growing up. The mark of the beast is 666. Well, if people look at that, it can also be, the CBDCs. It can also be all the other stuff. But the scientific of it is the 666 is carbon. And if you want to stay in the Maya, so to speak, or the
the
material
illusion,
realm,
the
then
illusion.
you're the illusion, you're going to continue to do things that keep you at a carbon level, not a crystalline level.
That's
That's
so
simple.
amazing. So that is basically what's behind the 666 and why people are saying that this is like satanic or whatever, is because it keeps us at a carbon base where we're not as connected spiritually.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, that's beautiful.
To me,
And
that's
go
the
over the
only thing of
huh?
666. To me, that's the real
Yeah,
answer of 666.
yeah, yeah. Is lack of progression,
Correct.
lack of movement forward, lack of expansion.
And what happens if you have lack of expansion? You get stagnant, or if you still want to move, you start to go what direction? The other way. More dense, more matter,
More
more
dance, more
carbon.
dance. Mm. Okay, so can you share a little bit more about the 666 carbon and show that
Oh,
image?
sure. Sure. Yeah. Let me share my screen again here. I want to show just why, so people can have a visual of why carbon is considered 666.
Can you make that? Yeah, thank you. If it'll let you make it bigger.
I think it will. There we go. So that right there, we have 6 protons and 6 neutrons in the center, and then 6 electrons on the outside. And so that's a balanced carbon atom or molecule. And yeah, it's an atom. Anyway, so, but that's the 666.
So 6 protons, 6 neutrons,
And 6 electrons. 6
and
electrons are out
six
here,
electrons.
the minus ones.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so that's what carbon is. The structure of carbon is
That's
six.
right. The
Six.
atomic structure.
Perfect.
And
Great.
then when you go through a spiritual burn on the carbon, you look at that. It's not a spiritual burn for the carbon, but it probably is.
Maybe. Yeah.
You know,
Who knows how the carbon feels?
yeah, I mean, their life, I
Yeah.
mean, they have electromagnetic fields just like we do. You
You
know,
mean like the tree, right?
oh
Like that was
yeah.
the picture of a tree. So, and yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm reading a book right now called The Secret Life of Plants, and
Mhm.
they in this it's a book that was written in the 70s, and they had a completely different way of looking at things back then. They still had a little more love in their hearts. But the plants, the guy that did the experiments, he was actually a lie detector guy for law enforcement. And he was
Oh,
waiting for this cop or whoever he was going to do a lie detector on to show up, and he was late. And so he was just like, I wonder if the plant would pass a lie detector test. So he goes and he hooks the electrodes up and he's playing with the plant, right? Well, the plant ends up talking to him. And
mhm.
to start off, he thought, I wonder if the plant would recognize pain. I think I'm going to burn it. And the plant, all of a sudden, it started to freak out on his little lie detector test. And he's like, oh, so it does know what fire is. And so then he decided to go get the flame to do it. And the
Oh, you mean
plant
he just mentioned it and the
mentioned it. And the plant freaked out. And so he's like, whoa, the plant freaked out. And so he's like, So he thought about burning the plant. And the plant freaked out again. He didn't move. And he's like, holy crap, the plant just read my mind. So then he left the room. And much to the plant's surprise, he came back with a set of matches to follow through with it. And the plant freaked out again. So then he
oh,
went over there and he actually lit the leaf on fire, and the plant did nothing. But what he found out was the plant fainted.
oh,
The plant fainted as a protection for the plant because plants understand what they are. So it fainted.
oh. Well, that's a pretty awesome mechanism.
It is. And so as the book progressed, right, they were actually talking about plants know everything that happens. They know everything that we need and want. And the more in my schooling, I'm learning this, but he was trying to say, if you had plants in every room of the house, they're little recording devices. If you go into a crime scene, all you have to do is just go talk to the plant. Find out from the plant what happened. But you have to have a relationship with the plants,
Right.
and I don't know if that'd really hold up in court, but still,
Yeah.
the science is there, and he was doing it.
Wow. That is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty fascinating.
Wow. 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 So where do we go from here? Like I'm just pondering, trying to integrate everything you just shared with me.
Well, there's so much more about plants and stuff, because I'm taking that class on regenerative soil,
Right.
and but we
Yeah.
can
So
stay on the crystal. subject.
Yeah.
There's still a lot to talk.
So talk to me about my brain's going to like, okay, so why would somebody want to maybe go more crystalline in their own body, right? Change their own body to crystalline. And what would that look like? And what are the steps to getting there? And you know what I'm saying? Like, what
Those
have
are
you
all great
heard about
questions that I'm still searching for. I don't
it?
know the answers, but I think why one would want to become more crystalline. Well, the reason I want to become more crystalline is because I want to be able to retain information. I mean, carbon can hold, to give you an idea, I mean, this isn't technical, but to give you just a small idea, carbon can hold, like, if it can hold one piece of information, crystal can hold like 10 billion pieces. That's
Oh,
the difference.
wow.
And so
Okay.
as soon as one becomes even remotely crystalline, then they can now actually travel the stars. You can do anything you want because you have the structure to be able to handle all the other realms and the energy that it takes to be able to do parallels, forward, backwards in time, all that stuff. The more
Okay.
crystalline you are, the more of that ability you have by default.
Right, right, right. And so I'm just gaining some clarity for people watching. This isn't information as much as it is imprinting, like energetic.
Correct.
And you might probably get this kind of information too, right?
The more you become crystalline, the more you'll be able to pick up on the crystalline information that is all around us. You know, the sun is a crystal,
Mm.
and the sun sends out information, and we pick it up. And the more crystalline we are, the more we resonate with the way that the sun sends information. The more crystalline we are, the
So
less
it's almost like learning more languages.
it is. Well, the sun is photon packets of information, and
Mhm.
it's got all the entire profile of information packets. Nothing is lacking from the sun. The only thing that's lacking is when we put SPF on and limit. Well,
And
we don't,
and
but
block the
and
sun.
block the information packets that are coming into us.
Yeah.
And the more and that is actually what's making us crystalline. The sun is actually doing the spiritual burn for us. But at some point, it's going to have to turn up the heat and really do the final burn. I don't know what that feels like or
Mm.
looks like, but
Because we're
but I've
not.
seen the trees go through it, and it's pretty intense.
Yeah. And so the more that we could up our ability to receive this information, then when, let's say, maybe a big solar flare or flash or something does actually occur, then we're more prepared to handle it. But
Correct.
if we're completely carbon based or the 666, we're not going to be able to handle it and we're going to
Right.
burn
I think we would just explode. We would literally just, I mean, you put light into something that is solid, it explodes it.
up. Mm.
I mean, the
Okay.
frequency is moving so fast and the carbon isn't. Something's
Right.
going to give.
Okay, great. So let's talk about ways people can um, create those structures to be able to hold more information. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that being with the sun is probably a big one. And
Yeah.
it's probably why so many of us are called to the sun.
Yeah. I think being in the sun gazing, um, worshiping the sun, so to speak. I mean, the sun hears you. If you walk out there and say, son of a bitch, or I love you, it hears both. And I think it responds.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that the sun speaks in, or the sun has access to all information.
Mhm.
And
Well, not all information, but
okay,
all the
say that
information
again,
from
how
the
you said
galactic
that.
center comes through the sun
Okay, so all the
for
information
us.
from the galactic center comes through our sun,
Correct.
and that comes in frequencies, correct?
Yes, through frequencies and through actual protons, through
Okay.
photons and protons.
Okay, so the frequencies and the protons. Okay, so then as we're with the sun, and especially I think with sunrise and sunset, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Because
then
of the
we can
infrared
also,
rays in the morning.
okay, talk about that a little bit.
Well, as the sun sets and rises and sets, there's a whole spectrum of more light. The human eye can only see a spectrum of maybe a small spectrum, but the spectrum is huge, and it's different wavelengths. You know, the shortest wavelength is like the speck long, and the longest one is like 6,200 miles. And so
Mm.
that's the range of wavelength, and we can only see in a small percentage of it. I forgot your question.
Me too. I was listening to you. What
Oh,
do you think? Oh, we were talking about why sunrise and sunset is a really
oh
great
yeah.
time to get this information to come
And
through.
so depending on the where you are and the angle of the planet, but when the sun comes up, you get the full spectrum. Let's say from A to Z or from 1 to 1,000, you get the whole spectrum or a much bigger spectrum. Not the whole spectrum, but a much bigger spectrum. And so when you get that spectrum, um, it's more information. It's more, if you go to school and you only go to history and you get the history packets, you're going to be really good at history. But when it comes graduation time, you're not going to even know that science and math and all those other existed unless you go to all those classes. And that's what the morning and the evening sun give you, are all the packets of information that you need to excel.
Okay, awesome. And then during the day is more of like partial packets. Different times
Correct.
of the day probably give you different packets and what have you.
Correct.
So this would be like, dang, there's a really important reason to be in nature, to
Yeah,
not be
it's
cooped up in our houses away from the sun. And I
yes.
mean, there's so much more than just the sun, but like the earth and the water and all of it plays a role. But this one alone is huge.
And each day of the week gives you more different recipes of information.
Mm.
Sunday is actually the magenta day. And so the magenta from the sun gives you all the colors that magenta makes up. It's like 7 or 8 colors. And so Sunday, that's why it's called Sunday, is because it gives you the biggest spectrum of light on Sunday. And then on Monday, Tuesday, whatever, it will like maybe focus on purple or yellow or red or whatever that day signifies. It'll be more of that for that day. But
Oh,
Sunday is
that's
a combination.
fascinating. That's fascinating. Okay, so the sun is one really powerful way of really upping our crystalline structure or creating, helping to create our crystalline structure so we can receive that information more fully from the sun.
Correct.
Great. What are some other things that are giving us information? I'm going to guess all the elements,
Yeah.
probably water,
Oh,
earth,
yeah.
breath.
Yeah. All of it. I think the water is probably the biggest because water can store, well, it all can store information, but water is just amazing. There's so much to water. Yeah. Water, I think,
So
can
glad you studied it.
oh, me too. It's really helping in my life now. But water can store energy. The refraction ability of water is massive. And the refraction means slowing down light. So if you had a glass of water and the sunlight is just rising up, you could calculate the time that it would take for the photons. It's 8 minutes by the time sun rises, the time it gets here, right? We've calculated that in science. But if you watch the wavelength of the sun, as soon as it hits the water, it slows way, way, way down. And because the water is a battery, it actually holds the light. If
Mm.
it's refracting it, it's holding it because light just travels, right? So if you can hold the light in the water, what else can the water do? You can program it, you can speak to it, you can tell it you love it, you can do all kinds of things, and it will actually respond to that. But it responds because of the light and the electricity that the sun gives it
Mm.
through the hydrogen.
Okay, great. Let's talk about water then.
Okay.
How this can help our, create our crystalline structure so we can have more information.
Well, water is one of the most important, well, it is the most important element that we have in our body because it travels and carries sunshine around through our body, and also all the other minerals and all the other everything that we do, it all travels through water.
Mm. And so it's sort of like the superhighway of
It is.
information. It's
And
like
that's why
that
it has
information
memory.
hit.
It
Oh,
has memory because it's the superhighway and because of its structure. I've studied water for 12 years, 13 years now. I mean, pretty in depth. And I still only know just like this much. There's so
mm,
much more um, that I'm still learning even today about water.
yeah. But the essence of it is what we're talking about. And so it's really like you really want water in your body and the best water that we can,
Right.
because we don't want our
Sure.
super highways carrying toxins and chemicals and all this kind of stuff in our bodies. We would
Right.
rather carry it the pure information and the nutrition and everything we're really needing.
Correct.
That's fascinating. Okay. I had another question and it left my brain.
Well, we can talk a little bit about water and see if it pops in.
Oh, I
Structured.
didn't ask about the hydrogen. How does the hydrogen change that and affect that, right? Because we've talked a lot about the hydrogen and the hydrogen machine, but yeah, just talk
Okay.
more.
So hydrogen, the beautiful thing that it is, it's a proton, an electron, right? And so when water, pure water, actually goes, when it starts to, well, let's just take a plant, for instance. When it goes inside the plant absorbs extra hydrogen from the sun. And so it adds that to its water. And then what happens on both sides of the side of the plant, so you have a stem of the plant, right? One side of it, it lines up all the hydrogens on one side of the plant, and then it lines up the oxygen on all the other side. It actually splits the water out, and then it
Wow.
leaves a highway between it. So
Oh.
now you have a positive charge and a negative charge, and they're both stationary. A maglev train has the same thing.
Oh, wow.
Water can shoot through that plant with zero resistance, none whatsoever. It doesn't even, gravity doesn't even hold it back. And it doesn't matter the quality of water that goes into it, it instantly gets purified because of the charge, the positive and the negative charge. All the impurities in the water, they go and they stick to the outside walls. And then you have absolute pure water, and it can race from the root of a tree, a 300-foot tall tree. It can race from the root to the leaf in less than a second.
Dang. That is powerful.
And you know what carries it all? Sunlight. The
Mm.
proton, it's a proton pump, and it's the proton from the hydrogen that actually pumps it up.
Okay, say that again because I was still absorbing what you just said and I didn't get
Well,
that one.
the protons, how they all line down
Right.
on one side of that, having that polar creates, and then having the sun shine on it, that
Mm-hmm.
creates the movement.
Okay.
In fact, if you could
Gotcha.
snip that plant and take that stem and stick it in the ocean and just lay it in the ocean and let the sun shine on it, it would take ocean water and push the ocean water through that plant, but it would be perfectly pure inside that plant. There would be
Dang.
no minerals whatsoever. It'd be distilled water quality.
Wow. That's
Plants do that
fascinating.
all day long.
Wow. Plants are amazing. So then when we're drinking the hydrogen water and breathing the hydrogen from this perspective, is it doing the same thing for our body?
Yes, it's actually, and here's what I learned, it actually creates, when water can absorb the extra molecule of hydrogen, right? In science, they say it can't without some sort of a reaction, well, like fire or something like that. So if we're manually trying to put it together, we have to ignite it, and then it can create water. But if it's in our body, then our bodies are these reactors. And so they can simply do whatever they want without that ignition happening. And so what it can do is it can add that extra hydrogen into the water, and it's called, it's the fourth phase of water. It actually turns it into a gel.
Mm.
So, and this is brand new science too. I mean, this is only just a couple of years old, where they actually proved that when you start to stack the molecules on like sheet layer instead of just randomly put them in there, because your hydrogen has, or your water has two hydrogens and one oxygen.
Hmm.
But the oxygen is way bigger. So if you lay it on a plate and then lay another oxygen molecule on top of it, your hydrogen molecules are so little, they're sitting horizontal. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
instead, if you start stacking them vertical, the hydrogens switch and they click this way, and they start stacking this way. So now you can have sheets of water, and it's all held together by the hydrogen that's twisted sideways, and that's a gel.
Oh,
So if you look at
interesting.
the structure, just like any kind of a gel that's a neutral gel, that's the structure.
Oh,
We've
interesting.
made it so that it layers on each other. Well,
Yeah.
our bodies naturally do that, and plants naturally do that with the water. The pure water we drink, the easier it is to make that gel. And when
Hmm.
we have the gel, they're just learning that gel can hold information. It can hold, it can do all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
It gets
Okay.
me
And so,
excited just thinking about it, because it's a part of water that I never really knew.
right. And so then the hydrogen, breathing the hydrogen and drinking the hydrogen water helps that to happen
Correct.
easier. It
Correct.
also is so detoxing. I've found that it has helped me detox so quickly and easily that I'm like, I just feel so much cleaner. It's
Yeah.
amazing how much
You know
cleaner
what
I
I've started
feel.
doing with my hydrogen machine is I
What?
have it sitting next to my bed now.
Uh-huh.
I'll wake up at 4 in the morning and I'll put that on and then I'll go back to sleep.
Nice.
And then I'll wake up and hit it again. So I run 2 cycles in the morning before I get up.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you what, morning breath, there's none. No morning breath. I got fresh.
Wow.
I mean, it's all great. It's like, it's pretty interesting.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. So I recently did like I was going to do 2 day water fast, but I just did a 1 and 3/4 of a day, right? And by the end of the first day, and I was doing the hydrogen, breathing it twice a day, and I was drinking hydrogen water, distilled hydrogen water all throughout the days, right? By the end of that night, which this is very not typical, my husband said, "You must be detoxing because your breath smells like metal."
Wow. Interesting.
One day, 1 day of breathing that, right? And I've never had that when I've done longer water fasts or what have you. Like after a few days, I could feel, the stuff in my mouth building up, whatever. And then I might have bad breath. But I
Mhm.
wasn't eating anything, like nothing, no juices, no nothing, right? By the end
Wow.
of the day, he could smell metal on my breath. I
Wow.
was like, dang, that's some powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the hydrogen will actually go through and help. Remember that wall that we were talking about that's around the
Mhm.
cell that actually builds that up? In my research, neutral galactic hydrogen
Mhm.
actually will work its way and sit on this stuff and try to help dissolve it. It's also small enough that it can go through it, but it also helps sit on it and it tries to dissolve it. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it's part of what it does.
Okay, so I have a question about that. Is the stuff that builds up around the cell, that's going to be carbon based, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
No, it's going to be, it could be, depend on what metal impurities you're drinking. It could be
Okay.
toxin based, which some toxins are carbon based, but it could be metal.
Okay. Interesting. And so the hydrogen can go in there and start penetrating even that really dense,
Right.
dense stuff.
Yep.
Fascinating, right? Wow. Okay, what other things? We've got sun, we've got water. I'm gonna guess probably minerals.
Oh yeah, if you have the proper mineral uptake and it's all bioavailable, then basically to do anything to handle any kind of electricity in your body, you need to have the full profile of minerals because every mineral carries its own electrical charge and it
Hmm.
does a specific thing, right? And the way it does it is because of the specific charge that it can carry. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Say it, just explain more.
Okay, so to give you an idea, phosphorus. You understand about phosphorus that we have to have phosphorus in our body, right? Well, we can't pick up phosphorus. Let me see, I'm going in the wrong direction with this. It's too big of a story to try to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the question again? Sorry, my mind went on to the
Minerals,
transmission.
basically.
Oh, the minerals. Okay, so the trace organic minerals are very important in our body because they allow the larger minerals to do what they need to do. For instance, let's say copper. Copper carries an electrical millivolts of, let's say, 45. Okay. And so if you don't have the copper's electrical millivolts of 45, then 60% of your calcium is locked up. And
Mm,
you can eat and drink whatever you want of liquid calcium, but as it goes into the body can't use all of it. And as it absorbs, it gets locked up in a different pH form or a different mineral will connect it. But this copper connected with that will release all the calcium because
mm,
it works together. Everything that we eat is synergistic. All the
right.
minerals, the trace minerals are synergistic and holistic. And
Yeah.
then one, but copper doesn't necessarily work with magnesium or iodine or anything like that. But everything has its connectors. And if we're missing one section over here, then we're not fully as good as we could be over here. Make sense?
Got it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well,
Makes a
that's
lot of
why
sense.
it's so important to get all of our minerals, all the trace minerals, all the stuff in regular organic that we can uptake and full profile. The more profile we have, it's like we have all the packets from all the classes. We have all the information to actually graduate.
Got
Without
it.
all that stuff, when it comes test time, which is going to be our spiritual burn, we're going to miss.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be really, really hard, and we might make our way through it, but I would rather be 100% full, like scan and say, oh, yep, it's perfect. Let's go through, we need to burn off of his ego and his faults or whatever, but the structure is good, right? I'm okay with that.
Structure's great.
Yeah, the
It
structure
does.
is what I'm wanting to build.
Right, exactly. But I kind of suspect too that mentally, energetically, emotionally, all these things also play a role in all of it, right?
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Okay, so now we've talked about three of the elements: fire, water, and earth, right?
Mhm.
Let's talk
Okay.
about breath. Let's talk about air.
Okay. So breath is so good because everybody wants to raise the pH of the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the body can do that all on its own, but we can do it. We can give it extra electrons because we've learned that electrons love to hang out on oxygen, right? Through all of our science that we've been learning about high pH,
Mm-hmm.
the high pH is extra electrons on the oxygen. So breathe. Deep breathing raises the oxygen, raises the pH in the blood, and only the blood, because that's where we
Mm-hmm.
need it.
Right, right.
So
And so, go ahead.
I was going to say, so the oxygen, the air, and breath, the electrons are life, and without the electrons are what allow the metals, all the good form of metals that we have. The metals don't necessarily move from point A to point B. They sit here, the copper and the calcium, like we talked, and they fire electrons to each other. That's how
Mm,
the information is passed.
okay,
And so breath gives us those extra electrons.
nice. And it just helps everything to fire correctly. Okay,
Correct.
so how does this help our crystalline structure?
It's just one of the ingredients to a holistic life that help the crystalline structure better.
Yeah,
Could
that
you
makes
build
sense.
that crystalline structure with less, with only three of the elements? You could, but it might look a little more like the biochar versus the diamond.
Mm, got it. So if we want the complete holistic structure, it's really great to have all of the elements
Yes.
here and present, and to be using all of our tools, all
Yes.
of our right, everything to really boost us up and give us
Right.
that boost that we need to create this.
Yep.
Wow, I've learned so much already, Roy.
The more connected in every single way that we can get, the better off we're going to be.
Right.
I'm realizing the more I'm learning just how disconnected I was. I didn't realize the levels. And the more I learn, I'm still realizing that we're so disconnected. So I've got a very cool story about water to tell you.
Okay.
So the oceans are controlled by the moon, right? Nobody uh, disagrees with that, right?
Mhm.
So the tides come in and go out twice a day because of the moon. But I thought that the ocean stopped, or that the moon's gravitational pull stopped at the beach, right? All water on all the planet goes
Mm.
up and down with the moon's tide. So twice a day, if you dig a hole in the backyard and you reach the water table and you stand in that hole twice a day, your feet are going to get wet, because the moon lifts the water table up on the planet and lowers the water table twice a day. The reason that she does this is because if we grow our food properly and the roots can actually go
Oh,
all the way down to the water table, then Mama Earth waters our plants for us twice a day,
oh, wow.
because the water table comes up and goes down. And basically, yeah, if you're living up high on a hill, but you have your soil worked all the way down, it still works as a capillary action. And
Hmm.
that's a whole nother scientific thing, but the capillary action creates a siphon, if you will, so that wherever there the water table is, it will actually go right all the way up and feed all your plants.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And that's by the gravitational pull of the moon. So if the
Wow.
moon is going to water my garden for me, and all I have to do is right, that's living pretty holistic.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, wow,
Those are
wow.
some of my goals, right? I don't have the moon watering my garden yet, but it's I'm going to try to design it that way so that I can look at the landscape and see where the water kind of wants to naturally be, and then plan accordingly.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. So I love the holistic approach of it. Like just choosing one aspect or another aspect isn't really enough. I mean, could we do it? It might be a lot harder. We might can do it. I don't know. But it's like the whole aspect. The more that I focus on, you know, all everything, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, the everything, the better and better and better and better I feel.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
and
too.
the more in tune I am, right? So to give you an example, so when I went and studied with Hendricks Institute, I think it was from 2006 to 2008, right?
Mhm.
I was already, playing with my own intuitive abilities and blah, blah, blah. But I watched a lot of people come in at that time, and I was with those people for 2 solid years. And what I noticed every single time is that by everybody focusing on their emotions and learning how to process their emotions, automatically changed how intuitive they are,
Yeah.
right? Automatically. And so everything is so synergistically connected that just focusing on just one, like, yeah, you might can get there, but it's going to take you a lot longer. And
Right.
I'm more about like, ooh, how fast and easy can we do this, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, yeah, I want to do the water and the sun and the minerals and the breath and the, you know what I mean, to really give myself the boost that I truly desire.
Well, that's what I've found too. The more holistic that I've gotten, the more holistic I want to become. The
Yeah, me
more I'm
too.
looking to say, where else am I missing? Where else am I disconnected? Because connecting these 10 strands felt so good. I want to connect every other strand that's disconnected. And there are a lot. There are so many.
Tell me what you're noticing in that area. Like when you say so many, what are you seeing?
Well, for instance, the disconnection of where I'm disconnected, people that are really connected can walk out into their garden and they actually talk to their plants. They,
Yeah.
for instance, the course that I'm taking, one of the courses now is the guy said, I can walk out in my yard because he's third generational organic farmer. And he's like,
Mm.
I just look and I ask the ground where they want carrots next year.
Oh, wow.
And he says, and it's just obvious to me because the earth or the plot just tells me, oh, we want carrots here. He's like, that is as natural to me as knowing I need to use the bathroom.
Wow. That's
And to
amazing.
me, that's pretty connected.
That is really connected. I'm definitely not that connected.
No, and so I mean, neither am I. Another thing that I learned was that in the Native Americans, they would move, they would travel around, right? But they needed to take food with them, and they needed to grow it, but they were on different soils all the time,
Mm.
but they still would able to eat. So what they did was, of course, it was the grandmas of the tribe that understood this and knew it's the divine feminine, right? But
Right.
what they would do is they would bring their corn seeds with them. And then they would get to their new place and they would look around to find native grasses.
Mm.
And then they would pull up the native grass, they would put it in a bowl of water and heat it over the stove because it activates all the microbes that are in the natural grasses that are growing in the land that they've moved to. So then they let the water cool down and then they put the corn seeds in this pot, and then the grandma goes by and spits in it because basically what I believe is they heated up the root to get the bacteria activated. It has to activate if like you're making beer and stuff like that. You have to heat it
Right.
up a little bit to activate the bacteria, but it
Mhm.
also pasteurizes some of the other bacterias,
Mm.
right? But that's where the grandma comes in. She spit and got
And
all the
you
other
put the
bacteria
bacteria back in.
back in after they had pasteurized, but they
Yeah.
activated the one that would help their corn grow in the new territory. When they
Wow.
put their seeds in there, the seeds become used to all the microbes that are in that water, and the microbes actually go inside the seed, and those microbes know how to grow in this ground. So then they
Mm.
plant the seeds, and the corn will grow like normal.
That's genius.
It, where did they learn it?
Right.
They were connected.
They were connected.
They knew and they understood the levels of that, and it was the normal for them. The Aborigines 10,000 years ago or 10,000 years before Egypt, they were making bread.
Hmm.
anyway, it's a whole another thing about being connected, but they understood the land, they understood just how to be connected.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they call the indigenous people, or I always figured indigenous, I never knew what that meant, but indigenous means somebody that's still connected to their roots, so much so that they haven't really picked up on any of the commercial industry.
Oh,
I
wow.
want to be indigenous.
Yes.
You know what? We are all indigenous to the
Yeah.
earth.
We all, yeah, we are for sure. Because here
We're
we
just
are.
natives to different places, but it
We're
doesn't matter where we're native. We're indigenous
right.
to Mama Earth here.
We're indigenous to the mama. Oh, I love it, love it, love it. Wow. Yeah. So, what can change as we start connecting more and more and more and more? My brain goes to it all starts here. As I start connecting with this person, I'm naturally going to want to start connecting that way. And
Right.
it's not going to be so hard, right? But if I'm avoiding everything here, my emotions, my thoughts, my actions, if I'm avoiding looking at anything that might be uncomfortable, chances are I'm not going to connect with Earth either.
Oh no,
Yeah.
because you're not even connecting here. And
Could you?
this is you.
Yeah.
There's no way you
This
can
is the
connect.
core of all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You can't connect to Mama if you can't connect to you first, because you're just an extension of Mama.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's you know, so when you say once you deal with this in here, makes
Mm-hmm.
you want to go do this better, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at. I'm wanting to do this better, and I'm wanting to show the whole world that there's a better way. But in
Mm-hmm.
order for me to do that, I have to learn it, walk it, and be it.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
show the world that there is a better way. And so that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do.
I love it, Roy. I love it. I also was seeing the let's say even if you aren't connected here, but you go and you lay on the earth or you spend
Mm-hmm.
time in nature, that actually also helps the other direction. It helps you to want to connect here.
Right.
Like
It
it's
does.
such a symbiotic relationship with the outside and the inside because my understanding of it is at this point anyway is that it's really not a separate thing.
Right.
The inside and the outside isn't really a separate thing. It's just that in this world of duality, we have separated it, which is fine. That's great. That's how we're
Right.
learning, how we're growing. But both are such a huge benefit. So I'm not trying to tell people don't go in nature until you feel this. No,
Right. Right. Right.
go
You know,
in
it's
nature
better.
and deal with your
There you
emotions.
go. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's better. Go in nature and connect with here, because
Yes,
Mama will help you. Mama will guide
yes.
you. When I say Mama, I'm saying the earth, but you
The
know,
earth will guide you, the sun will guide you, the water will guide you, your breath will guide you. All of this can actually assist you to feel your emotions, to work through your limiting patterns and mindsets. All of that will actually assist you instead of sitting in your home all cooped up and you know what I mean, without access to that. It's just a little harder. You can do it, totally do it, but it's a little harder.
and from what I'm learning, the plants will assist you now too if you just simply ask.
Yeah.
And if you know, one other thing that I was going to tell you on the guy, he did an experiment. The guy that was doing the lie detector tests, he got him a cactus, little baby cactus, and his experiment was to show that cactus that he loved it and that he would be its protector.
Mm.
And he told that cactus that over and over and over again, and the cactus grew without thorns. Yep.
Wow.
It didn't need him. It was convinced that he was going to be its protectorate. And so it grew without thorns. And then his wife ended up loving the plant so much that they ended up communicating and recording it. She taught it how to count. She taught it how to add, all that stuff. It's a cactus.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. It's triggering some thoughts in my brain of that, like how powerful are we for each other, right? Like, so yeah, maybe plants and the animals are on a second dimension or whatever, right? Or
I kind of
density,
think they're on
not
a
dimension.
higher dimension than us.
Well, yes, in some ways. And yet animals, let's take animals. Maybe the plants are, I don't know. That's just what we've always been told, right? But thinking about like the plant didn't know how to count before she taught it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It might have some inner innate knowing, but it didn't know how to count, right? And the same thing with animals. There's a certain limited um, amount of information that they can receive, right? Yeah. So
Right.
I was. What's coming up for me is in my last plant ceremony that I did. The facilitator of the plant medicine, she had a dog, and I'm not super big I like dogs, but I don't like them in my space. I don't like them licking my face. I don't like that kind of stuff, right? And so I just asked her to keep the dog downstairs. And she's like, okay, no problem. With her son. Her son was going to watch the dog. And then she's about an hour, 2 hours in, the son said, this dog will not stay downstairs. He wants to be a part of this. And she's like, okay, I will hold him so he doesn't get in Marina's space. Right.
Mhm.
So I got the wonderful experience of talking to this dog while I was on plant medicine. And
Oh,
that
man.
dog was trying to raise its level of consciousness. Right?
Wow.
It
Wow.
wanted, like, it sits through all the ceremonies that she facilitates, and it didn't want to miss out on mine. Right? It's like, no. And that dog would sit on her lap when we would talk about whatever things were flowing through, right? And the dog would sit on her lap, and it was like, and you could tell the dog was just like, I'm listening, I'm trying to gather whatever information from whatever way that I can gather this information to be able to absorb it into my own consciousness.
Wow. That's
And
neat.
when I spoke with the dog, intuitively I could feel its desire to expand its level of consciousness.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That was amazing. And so of course, if we're all so connected, why not?
Did you know that the level of growth that an animal actually receives is directly dependent on the amount of love that a human gives it?
Oh wow.
That's how it moves up into the next dimension. Is if it can absorb, we're absorbing the sunlight, they're absorbing.
Right.
I mean, they have unconditional love, but they need to absorb more from us. And the more love that we actually give those animals is directly correlated onto their advancement.
Wow.
According to Ra.
Right.
That's what Ra has said. But
Right. Wonder if that's why dogs are so needy.
well,
They're just trying to
every
advance.
time I go to meditate, Maggie, she's right in my face.
Is she
She's
one of your
right.
dogs?
She's just right up there. But I think it's because they absorb uh, energy from us. They absorb dark energy, but they have no way to get rid of it until I'm meditating. And that's when I'm getting rid of all mine. And so she comes right up and she needs to be in my space when I'm meditating. Before she'd touch my nose or something, and that would throw me out of my meditation, right? But now
Right.
she learns to just kind of sit in the vicinity, but not touch me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So
Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
animals are wonderful.
Yeah, they are. They are. I'm getting to melt some of my issues with dogs
Mm.
specifically. So that's nice. I've always been a cat person, but
Me
and I
too.
like dogs, but I've had some issues with dogs,
Me too. Me too. I think that there were programming issues from when we were kids,
Possibly. I
and I've
don't
been working through them.
Yeah, I tend to not want the dog in my space. Like I don't mind the dog around, right? I like the animal. I like the animal's energy, all that. I just don't want them all over me. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems like dogs want to be all over me where cats will honor my space, right?
Right.
And so that's the thing I haven't loved about dogs. But one of the things that I had this experience with this dog in my plant ceremony was I got to talk with him and tell him, you know what I don't love is this thing that you do where you're getting in my space. And he learned how to honor my space within, I don't know, a few minutes. He
Nice.
literally learned that. And then I watched him go and approach his owner and like, oh, do you have a bubble? And do you have a, and he was learning space in
Nice.
that session.
Nice.
I
Nice.
know. So I'm like, oh, maybe I could cohabitate with the dog in a pleasurable way.
Oh, I think you could. I think you
Oh,
could.
I could. Anyways, wow, wow, wow. We've covered quite a bit today. It feels like it's a good time to start wrapping up.
Okay.
Thank you. Unless you have more.
Oh no, I mean it sounds like a good. I could chat about all kinds of things that I'm on with plants and whatnot, but we'll save that
Yeah,
for another.
yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us and sharing what
Thanks for
you've
having
learned
me.
and supporting us all to have a bigger picture.
Sounds good. We'll see
Okay.
you later.
All right. Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.